Okay, we are starting off our serial killer profiles with Belle Gunness. Belle Gunness lived in the 1800s, late 1800s, early 1900s. So you would think that because this is like a pretty old, in terms of like just timeline, a pretty old case, there wouldn't be that much information about her, but actually there's a lot of information about her, and she's fascinating. So she is called the Black Widow. If you've ever heard of someone being called the Black Widow or even the Black Widow spiders, I think you might have an idea of where this case is going. But let's get into it. So, serial killer Belle Gunness is reported to have murdered more than 40 people between 1884 and 1908 before possibly disappearing without a trace. Belle was born Brynhild Paulsdatter Struths on November 22, 1859 in Selbu, Norway. She was the daughter of a stonemason, changing her name to Belle Gunness when she immigrated to America in 1881 in search of wealth. What followed were a series of insurance frauds and crimes, escalating in size and in danger. To the outside world, disaster and tragedy struck Gunness in inordinate amount of times. Property she owned mysteriously burned to the ground, while her husbands, lovers, and children seemed to tragically drop like flies. But there was always a silver lining for Gunness, in the form of a large insurance payout. Belle Gunness was one of the first Black Widows and became a prolific serial killer. She is often referred to as Hell's Belle, and authorities eventually found the remains of over 40 victims on her farm property. In 1884, Belle Gunness married Mads Albert Sorensen. Belle's penchant for murder and insurance fraud started shortly after her marriage. Together, the couple opened a confectionery store and had 4 children: Caroline, Axel, Myrtle, and Lucy. They also had a foster child named Jenny Olsen. With a husband, children, and a business, there were plenty of opportunities for Gunness to claim insurance rewards. Not long after the store opened, it and their home mysteriously burned down. The couple successfully claimed the insurance money. Soon after, Mads Sorensen died of heart failure on the one day his 2 life insurance policies overlapped, which allowed her to claim 2 separate policies for only 1 dead body. The first doctor examined his body and discovered Mads had died of strychnine poisoning. But Gunness's doctor overruled the finding and determined that he had died of heart failure. Though her husband's family demanded an inquiry, no charges were filed. Not long after, 2 of Belle's children, Caroline and Axel, died from acute colitis. However, acute colitis and strychnine poisoning share some common symptoms, such as abdominal pain. But this slipped past the coroner, and Gunness got her life insurance money. With plenty of insurance money in her pocket, she took her 3 remaining children to LaPorte, Indiana. In 1901, she bought a 42-acre farm at the end of McClung Road. Though a woman of means, she still wanted more. Soon after, a part of the farm burned down, and she collected more insurance money. On April 1, 1902, she married Peter Gunness, a local butcher and widower. Her new husband brought with him 2 daughters, who Belle saw as dollar signs. Not long after the wedding, 1 child died under mysterious circumstances. Peter knew something wasn't right and sent his eldest daughter, Swanhild, to stay with relatives. She was the only child to survive Belle Gunness. As it turns out, Peter should have left too. In December of 1902, he died when a meat grinder fell off a kitchen shelf and onto his head. Gunness's daughter Jenny told schoolmates, "My mama killed my papa. She hit him with a meat cleaver and he died. Don't tell a soul." This time, the coroner noticed symptoms of strychnine poisoning and ordered an inquest. But no hard evidence was found, and Gunness convincingly cried crocodile tears over her husband's death. However, they soon dried up when she cashed in Peter's life insurance policy. Several more unexplained deaths followed, as Belle Gunness was known for actively meeting wealthy men through a lovelorn newspaper column. Her suitors were her next victims: each of whom brought cash to her farm and then disappeared forever. John Moo, Henry Gerholt, Olaf Svenharold, Ole B. Budsberg, Olaf Lindblom, and Andrew Higelin, to name just a few. When Belle ran out of husbands, she attracted would-be suitors to her murder farm, telling them in her correspondence to bring their money and to not tell anyone that you're coming. The men all sought to buy shares in her farm by depositing their cash into Belle's bank account. At 6 feet tall and weighing 200 pounds, Gunness could certainly handle herself if one of her victims attempted to escape. When the transactions were done, she would poison their food or hit them over the head with a meat cleaver. Based on evidence later found at the murder farm, it is believed she would dismember the bodies of her victims and either feed them to her pigs or bury them in the hog pen. Besides the men, Belle's adopted daughter Jenny's body would also eventually be found on Belle's property. In 1908, one of her unfortunate suitors, Andrew Higlin's brother, became suspicious and Gunness's luck seemed to be running out. On the morning of April 28, 1908, her farmhouse burned to the ground where town authorities found the bodies of Belle's 3 children, Lucy and Myrtle Sorensen and Philip Gunness. They also found the corpse of a headless woman thought to be Belle Gunness. Investigators found another 11 bodies in the hog pen. One was Gunness's foster daughter, Jenny Olson, who had been missing since 1906. After combing through the ashes, the investigators found dental bridgework belonging to Gunness. The coroner deemed this sufficient evidence to confirm that the headless corpse belonged to Belle Gunness. After the fire, Belle's victims were unearthed from their shallow graves surrounding the farm. All told, the remains of more than 40 men and children were exhumed. Ray Lamfer, Gunness's hired hand, was arrested for murder and arson on May 22, 1908. He was found guilty of arson, but cleared of murder. He died in prison, and on his deathbed, Lamfer claimed that Belle was the killer and had faked her own death. Days before the fire, they had traveled to Chicago to find and bring back a housekeeper. Unbeknownst to the woman, she was to become Belle's headless body double in the fire. Doubts remain about whether the headless woman is Belle Gunness or a body double. DNA results from 2008 were inconclusive. Yet there is one case which suggests that Gunness did indeed fake her death. In 1931, a woman named Esther Carlson died in Los Angeles while awaiting trial for poisoning a man. She bore a striking resemblance to Gunness and was of a similar age. But the clincher here is that Carlson had photographs of 3 children that resembled Gunness's children in her possessions.